Hi, I purchased this lens for use on my original Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera for shooting video. This review is not going to cover the lens's use as a still lens only video. I purchased it from B&H Photo in New York City for the incredibly low price of $73. It has 10 iris blades, giving it a decagon-shaped bokeh. It is a completely manual lens. There are no electrical connections for the lens whatsoever. The Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera that I use spends most of its life on a gimbal with an Olympus 12mm f2.0 lens. The 12mm lens features autofocus and focus-by-wire systems as well as an electronically controlled iris. The motorized focus system precludes the ability to pull focus. This has not been an issue with the primary way that we use the camera with the camera on a gimbal. However, I wanted to expand the use of the camera as well as to add the ability to truly throw the backgrounds out of focus, something that the 12mm was capable of, but not to the degree that the 35mm lens can do. The sensor size on this pocket camera is smaller than an MFT sensor, coming in close to the size of a Super 16 cinema camera frame size. This gives it a 2.88 times smaller frame than a full-frame 35mm camera. The 12mm lens on this camera is the equivalent of a 35mm lens on a full-frame camera, whereas the 35mm lens is the equivalent of a 100mm lens, so it offers a nice telephoto option for us. I have a set of filters for the 12mm lens that includes a set of close-up diopter filters, some ND filters, and a circular polarizer filter. The 12mm has a 46mm filter size, whereas the TTArtisans 35mm uses a 39mm filter size. When I purchased the lens, I ordered it with a B+W UV and IR cut filter. This was in 39mm, and a 39 to 46mm stepping ring, along with a 46mm lens cap. The filter acts as both protection for the front element of the lens as well as cutting infrared that can be an issue when using an ND or polarizing filter on digital cameras. I always use B+W since they use brass for the construction of the filter that eliminates the binding that you get with aluminum. That way the filter is easy to remove and doesn't need a wrench. Since my intent is to leave the stepping ring on the lens at all times to allow the use of my existing filters, I wanted the lens cap to fit the stepping ring. The lens is made entirely of metal. There's no plastic that's apparent in its construction, and it appears to be extremely well made. Normally, lenses will have the aperture control at the back of the lens and the focus control at the front of the lens. Oddly, this lens reverses those controls. The aperture control ring offers click detents at each of the f-stop settings, as well as in between each of them up to f4. The remaining f-stops from 5.6 to 16 do not include the in-between settings. The aperture control feels very solid and well made. The focus control is very smooth and has a great feel to it as well. Overall, I'm amazed at how well this lens is made, especially at this price point. Let's look at the performance of the lens. The minimum focus distance of this lens is rated at 11 inches, and indeed I measured 11 inches in my testing, which is pretty respectable for a 35mm lens. I have a set of close-up diopter filters for the 12mm lens that I can use with this lens, and that brings the minimum focus down from 11 inches to 5 inches. That's with all three of my close-up lenses attached, which brings it to +6 diopters. Bear in mind, if you're considering the use of close-up diopter filters, they will eliminate the lens's ability to focus to infinity. Chromatic aberration, or CA, typically manifests itself as a purple and pink color fringe along the edges of high-contrast elements in the frame. Lenses that tend to exhibit this can have the effect reduced as the aperture is closed down. A wide-open lens will be most susceptible if it's suffering from this defect. One example is this printed document. Black against white is the highest contrast you can achieve, and as you can see here with the TTArtisans lens open to 1.4, we can see no discernible color fringing on the text. Another typical scenario for CA is foliage against a bright blue sky. Here's a shot with the foliage well lit and the sky bright blue and no CA is evident. In this shot, the foliage is in shadow against a bright blue sky and offers an even higher contrast scenario, and again, there's no real CA to be seen. The lens offers excellent sharpness at each f-stop, even wide open at 1.4. The color and contrast are also excellent across the board with this lens. Again, it's pretty surprising considering the very low cost of this lens. The lens has a very smooth focusing action, and it can be used to rack focus. While my intentions for the lens do not really include racking focus, I have other cameras that are much better suited to carrying out this function. It's still quite possible to do a rack focus with it, as can be seen in this example, so it's nice to know that this option exists should it be needed in a pinch. The final item we'll examine here is the bokeh on the lens. Here's a set of example images that illustrate the quality of the bokeh at each aperture. The iris uses 10 blades that produce a decagon-shaped bokeh at aperture settings higher than wide open. At 1.4, it produces a circle as expected. Overall, I think the bokeh looks excellent, no distortion in the background out of focus elements. In conclusion, I think this lens represents an incredible value. At less than $100 US, the lens is very well made and performs at a level that is more associated with lenses that are many times more than its cost. As for a star rating, I would give this lens 4 stars. The only real detraction with it, in my opinion, that keeps it from achieving a full 5-star rating is the reverse locations of the focus and iris controls. Other than that, it's perfect. I hope this video helped you and gave you the information you need to make an informed decision. You have many choices for which videos to watch on YouTube, and we greatly appreciate you choosing our video to watch. If you liked the video, please give it a like, as that helps other folks find it, and until the next video, take care.